On that, let's talk.
No,
Okay,
you got it. Just hit the button.
Okay, hello, Teresa Burke, and I have two questions. One is regarding the legal fees. When something is listed as a non-retainer matter, is that above what we've already budgeted or not? Or is it included in the budget that we have set forth?
It is included in the budget.
Okay, so non-retainer,
So there are certain items, and I'll turn to Ross in a minute, are included in the retainer agreement. And items that are not included in the retainer agreement are paid for at an hourly rate. So as long as that doesn't reach the threshold of our budget, and therefore we have to go over that number, we would then have to look for contingency funds to pay for that. We don't anticipate that. We base our number on our historical expenditures. So, Mr. Bonaski, did I get that right?
That's correct, and, basically retainers, day-to-day stuff, and there's believe me, a lot of day-to-day stuff from administrators, questions, attendance at these meetings. We do not charge for attendance at any of these meetings, supervising the election. There's a whole body of things that are within the retainer, but the budget, again, includes both retainer and non-retainer, based upon last year's experience. The non-retainer is basically contested matters, real estate matters, capital projects, et cetera. And, looking at the bill that the board has in front of them, basically we have things ranging from grievances, arbitrations, student disciplinary matters, lawsuits against the district. In the special ed area, there are impartial hearings, appeals to the commissioner. This bill encompasses, I would say, at least 20 different contested matters, by way of example.
And to clarify something we talked about at a previous meeting is go out for something called a request for proposals for legal services. The district will be doing that. I know I said before, but I thought it would be.
okay. And then the other question, not budget related yet, very important. My son, at the end of last week or the beginning of this week, brought home a letter regarding the 3rd through 8th grade testing that's going on. It clearly states that there could be a decrease in scores up to 30%. Okay, 2 points. One is, why was the letter, if that important, was sent home in the backpack with the children versus sending by mail? Because, of course, my son didn't get to it until 2 days later, and now on April 11th, I called the office asking for something to get back to me to clarify some stuff, and I'm still waiting for an answer. This is another one of those, whereas I called, I spoke to a person, I left a message, they said they'd get back to me within 24 to 48 hours, and I still haven't heard from the office. My concern is this, then I called the Board of Ed, I called upstate, and I found out my answers. There's a big concern with this testing and the scoring that's going on. They stated that we were aware of this test being changed. It didn't just happen in September, that we were aware of it. So for letters to come out the week or the Friday before it's testing, stating that we're going to have a decrease in scores up to 30%, and that we have to let our children know to get good night's rest and do all of these things. Well, it's kind of a little late. I think that all of this information should have given us to us either last year or the year before, or even, if nothing else, in September. It put me in a position where I'm telling my child, go in there. It really doesn't matter what you do on this test. It's not, this is what I was told, it's not a score for the child. It's just to evaluate what they were taught and how they were taught, and then it's an evaluation for the teacher. They also went as far as saying that if your child scored low in any one given area, that they should get assistance in that area. So when my son comes home and it's normally a higher level score in an area and tells me he did not finish the test, and now he's upset because he did not finish the test, I'm already behind the 8 ball. I don't know how we could correct this going forward. He's going into 3 more testing scores next week for math, and I already feel like I'm playing catch up. He was glad it was over. He was exhausted. So I don't know what happened or who dropped the ball or why first I didn't get a phone call back since the 11th, or...
I will do my best to never answer. I don't know who you spoke to at the state, but I would firmly disagree that we knew last year or any other time that they were going to completely change the format of the tests, or that we might experience a 30% drop. Might experience a 30% drop in the test rate. They announced that just within the last, I don't actually know the exact date, but not all that long ago. Common Core, which is what these tests are based on, not even fully implemented yet. No district. So if you, and I'm sure you follow this, because I know, you read the papers, we by no means are the only district who are experiencing these difficulties. So without getting on to how I personally, professionally feel about standardized tests, managing this moving forward, and there is no real way to predict. Now, if we experience a 30% decrease in state test scores, those students, by law, have to receive remedial services. So, I shouldn't say that, AIS services. So in the provision of that, we have to determine how we're going to manage that. Now, the state hasn't issued any new direction. You know, there was the opt-out movement, so there were a number of parents who decided they were going to have their children refuse to take the test. So there's a lot of confusion, and I have been personally in conversations not only with BOCES, but the state regarding mixed messages. Not only that the parents are receiving, but the districts are receiving. So certainly I apologize for that return call from our offices. However, we are operating as best we can under these very difficult conditions regarding these new assessments. We personally, professionally, as a school district, feel as if we're behind the eight ball as well. We haven't seen these assessments. Things we haven't even taught yet are going to be on this test. It is grossly inappropriate, and I have no problem going on record saying that.
Okay, and is it true that it's based on a rubrics that they have? That's what I was also told, that's why I'm just asking.
It's kind of out of context, I'm not sure what that means. There are rubrics for
For the testing of the scores, like for the essays and the short answers and all of that?
It's for the tests.
Okay, and we don't, as a school district, you weren't able to obtain that to guide where the scoring is going to be? I'm just curious,
We've shown a lot more that that would be the case.
On it. I'm just getting some information regarding it going forward. And then the only other thing I would suggest is definitely not send something as important as that letter home in the backpacks with the children. That might have been worth the 44 cents to send it to us in the mail.
Thank you for your question.
Hi, I'm Jared Behart. How are you? Can I ask a question about this proposition that's being added to the budget vote? Am I correct that I understood that it's being added to the ballot based on a petition that was submitted?
Right.
How many signatures were required for that petition to get it added to the ballot, do you know?
From memory, 236. It's a percentage of last year's vote. It's about 230, somewhere in that area. It's 5% of the people who voted in the previous election.
Oh, okay. In the materials that you said are going to be sent home explaining about this vote, is that going to be part of the information that's disseminated, that this is being headed to the ballot because 200 people asked for it?
Well, we haven't drafted it yet. We haven't drafted the brochure yet. We're going to fairly comprehensively describe the process, which I can highlight for you right now. Basically, if it passes, within 30 to 60 days thereafter, a special election will be held in order to elect 2 new members of the Board of Education. They will then, the board has to decide on the terms that they're going to have, so that the staggering of different offices, so not everyone's being elected in the same year. But basically, that's it. It will go on the ballot at a special election. If this proposition passes, there will then subsequently, 30 to 60 days after May 21st, be a special election for the purpose of electing 2 new trustees.
So in the middle of the summer? Okay. I guess it would be my suggestion, because it would be information that I would want to know, not, you know, especially if I was someone that hadn't attended this meeting, that this is being placed on the ballot, you know, based on a petition that was only signed by a couple hundred people, and the information about the costs of the special election too, I think, would be very pertinent information. So that would be just my suggestion, that that information be included in what's disseminated.
Thank you.
Yeah, just you know, if I may add one more thing, that once the requisite number of signatures and petitions were presented, this is not a discretionary petition. In other words, there's some things that are up to the board, whether to put it before the voters or not, whether you want to increase transportation of signatures or not, whether you want to sell a building, or there's certain things that are discretionary. This one, having received a petition with the requisite number of signatures, the board is constrained legally to put it before the voters.
Okay, yeah, that would be information that I would want to know, as someone who is deciding whether or not to vote for that.
Absolutely. Well, it's helpful for you to tell us that, because then it gives us reason to look at it that way. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for your input.
First, I want to leave off where I left off last week, was because I saw Jeff got a little upset. We appreciate what you guys do. We go toe to toe, and We ask a lot of questions and we try and get, answers, but when we get some of the answers seem to like not lead you into the direction where you were, for the answer that you were looking for. And that's why people get, a little testy, I guess. I mean, just like before, I said, do you know what lines have the surpluses in them? And the answer was that you know, but we as the taxpayer aren't afforded the right to know where the surpluses are hidden. So,
If I could.
I
there are
understand.
surpluses.
Dan,
There are.
I understand. Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Let me just,
Go ahead.
I understand what you're saying, Dan. I say to myself, would I want my children sitting here? And sometimes I don't think I would.
I understand
And we can debate.
100%. And that was one of the considerations I had last year when I was running for the board. I said, why do I want to sit up there and get berated by people? And I give you guys credit for doing it. I mean, you do it for nothing. You're volunteers. So,
I haven't felt berated very much over the 15 years, except of late.
okay.
I have to tell you that. I have not ever felt the way I feel right now.
Well, unfortunately, some people open their eyes. I mean, I could say that I'm one of them, and I'm sure you're referring to me. I sat home for the last 15 years and I never came to one of these
I'm
meetings.
not talking about.
And then I came to one meeting and I heard how we were cutting kids' programs, we were cutting this program and every this, but this guy gets a raise, that guy gets a raise, this one gets a raise, so I'm gonna cut that, and no buses, and then the threat is no sports. So that's angry, that gets people angry. That's why people are showing up and that's why people are getting involved. So I'm sure you're directing it to me, but
You're
like,
directing to us, Dan, I'm directing nothing.
If I could just clarify one item. There's a difference between, and I want to be clear about this, contingency and a surplus. So contingency means we throw money into budget codes and we think we have an expense. So we've talked about this and we shared very openly the special education line, in case students are living with special needs, the TAN borrowing if the interest rate goes up, the health insurance line. There are others that we don't necessarily share because, and they were mentioned earlier, the reasons that we don't do that. So we share, but in the end, the bottom line is always there. I understand you don't like it.
I'm not saying that I don't like it, but,
I'm sorry,
but by saying that,
Would you let the superintendent know?
I understand, we don't have to agree. I understand, but to debate over and over again the same issues is difficult for us. So, and that's okay for us to disagree. I'm not saying we're wrong, what I'm saying is there are different ways for us to look at this.
okay.
Managing this is coming from a level of experience and expertise that supports what we do. Now, are there other people who would say do it a different way? Yes.
And I accept that. I accept that we don't agree. I agree to disagree. But I don't understand the logic how you can say we have an $8 million surplus, but we can't tell you where it's at because we don't want the teachers to know because when we're negotiating. So it just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, I want to get off the budget topic. This month we had what I thought was a serious incident in the high school. It was some kid brought a gun to school. It was turned out to be a pellet gun or something. And I'd like to know from you guys what the procedure is because I heard about it first from News 12 as I got a thing on my cell phone. And then I started texting my kids what's going on. They were oblivious to the fact that some kid might be possibly running around the school with a gun. So I want to know what the procedure is and the protocol. Do I have to get in the car the next time I hear it on News 12 and run here and grab my kids out of school? I want to feel more comfortable with the procedure. Why we didn't go into lockdown, or what procedure we have when somebody shows up like that.
Well, every situation is different, as you might imagine. Administrators are handling issues as they arise, so how we notify parents has to come after your situation is handled. In this particular case, the incident was contained by Suffolk County PD within minutes, who also said no lockdown necessary. So, and at that point, this young man was in custody. So and then the district did its level best to ascertain what was happening along with security and Suffolk County Police Department, at which point then they made notification to the parents.
So you're saying the decision not to lock down the school was based on the recommendation for the police department after?
In this particular
In
situation.
this case, That's not always.
But there was
It may not be on scene.
but there's a response time from the time you call the police, they show up.
But that's not what happened. A community member called the police before the child arrived at school. So they almost arrived simultaneously.
So the reports that I saw or heard about that if the gun was found in the kid's locker is not true?
Mr. Costa, we actually discussed this at that high school PTA meeting, a lot of us had similar questions. And it was a member in the community, so the kid picked up his ass off, and wasn't a telephone.
All right, so, but we didn't discuss it yet tonight, and I think that's an important thing that we should have discussed. So you're saying that he never made it into the school?
No, he did make it into the school, it was in his locker, but the police came at the same time, and they took the way it was explained to us at that.
Doesn't make me feel any better.
And
Because if it was a real gun, he's already in the school.
you know, I don't think any of us made anybody feel better, but the response time of the police was like, came, you know, as soon as the school got out, the police were already there. And from my understanding, because I asked this very same question, that then the police make the decision on whatever goes on. But it was definitely something that was brought up, and it has the principals are definitely concerned about it, should say, it's addressed. And we don't always agree, but I mean, on that one, I agree. So-
Appreciate
To
that.
be sure, after the incident, we debriefed, reviewed all of our protocols, spoke with other community, anything could have been done differently, and how we could handle things in the future. Thank you for the question.
Well, that brings me back to a question I asked about 3 meetings ago about the retired police officers that are used as security guards in the school district, and whether there was any consideration for them to carry some concealed weapons. Not all of them, maybe 1, maybe 2 in each school. And you said that there was currently a committee meeting to make formal recommendations for changes to the school district security plan. That was at February's meeting? Can you brief us on what occurred at that meeting and what changes are going to be in the book?
We made the recommendations out of working group. I think you were there, where the recommendations for security moving forward were to continue the current level of staffing that we have, which was increased after the tragedy in Connecticut. The institution of additional locking procedures, additional alarms put on doors that are typically left chopped open so we can secure the facility. And then as well, putting in buzzers to buzz people in so that they show ID. Not everything has been fully implemented yet because we're in the process of constructing desks when they see one in the front, the buzzer, so people can be buzzed in and there are additional security cameras. So we are in the process of completely securing our facilities. That was the recommendation.
And Mr. President, I just would like to go on record that I personally would never vote for or support guns in our schools. So
Okay.
we did have that.
I'd love to come here and hear you guys discuss it amongst yourselves. That's why I come. I want to hear you talk to her, you talk to him, and hear you guys openly converse in front of us so we know what your position is. Before just now, I didn't know what your position was. I don't know what his position is. I don't know what Mary Jo's position is. I know what his position is because he stated it once. So I think that's what these meetings are for. We come, we hear you discuss things, and then we understand what you're talking about, and we're all in the know. And then we don't have to come up and ask crazy questions. All right, that's it for me tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Steve Hartman, I have 2 questions. One is, you formally adopted the budget process tonight, and my question revolves around, I guess we would call Proposition 1, which is the formal adoption of the budget. When is that actual proposition put to the board for a vote? To vote on next, because you're actually adopting the budget, but actually the wording that goes on the budget probably should be presented, if I'm correct, Mr. Bernowski, to the board for adoption 30 days before the budget vote.
What was on, you adopted it tonight.
You formally adopted the, you adopted the actual wording and language, because it was a,
That happened in an early meeting.
is in the early meeting you adopted it, but it doesn't have the language of the actual amount in it, am I correct? So basically, because you wouldn't know that it's 179 until I know it's a matter of semantics, but it's just a matter of seeing what the actual formal number is.
We will check our paperwork, but the resolution won't include 179. The resolution will include tax levy increase by law.
Right, so basically,
We'll make sure, we'll bring it forward.
okay.
This way, we want to be clear.
Okay.
It's been approved already, I'll just make sure.
Yeah, I understand, just, yeah, I'm just, more for matter of protocol, and just not really, and again, I thank you for all the hard work, I mean, yeah, consistency. The other point I wanted to bring up, just for connotation and wording, I know that there's some discussion on this second proposition, that the language that goes in there, I don't know if it's appropriate to actually show the amount that the special election is going to cost, because unless it's a precedent that prior special elections, you've said it before, like, for example, the Marion Call Farm vote cost us, in that, when you put together that flyer, that it cost us $17,000 special vote. I don't think it's pertinent, and again, it's my opinion, and actually brings a negative connotation. People who don't understand, they'll see $17,000, and whether it's good or bad, just vote against it for the fact of it's going to cost me $17,000 to have people sit around, to have 2 additional people. So it should be kind of unbiased on just what it actually does. Again, it's just my opinion. Thank you.
I'm Melissa Kurtz, and I have a question that may have been answered in other meetings, and I apologize, this is my first one, unfortunately. Regarding class size, it says in general that the class sizes are going to stay the same. I have a student in Sawmill that's entering 4th grade. It looks like the class size is increasing. Am I looking at that incorrectly? Are they getting rid of a class?
The class sizes in Sawmill in 4th grade are increasing from what they were in 3rd grade, but not over this year's 4th grade. So if you look at this year's 4th grade, there's some consistency with next year's 4th grade.
So, but so they're decreasing by class for the 4th?
Is that what you're talking for? Yes. That would be true.
Well, then I would just like to state that I think that that particular class is a difficult class. You have a lot of children that have caused behavioral problems in the past, and adding an extra 3 to 5 students in class doesn't sound like a lot, but I think it would negatively impact my child.
There is some...
It concerns me.
It's a legitimate concern. I understand that. We are also supplying teachers' assistants to support teachers as they engage in small group instruction at various times throughout the week. So there will be some additional support to recognize 4th grade, the next year's 4th grade in Sawmill have some things to do with this. So thank you for your input. Absolutely makes sense.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Edwards, and I just wanted to say I couldn't leave here tonight in a week like this without acknowledging, as a community member, regardless of whether I have children or not in the district, how much I appreciate the things like the 9/11 Memorial and all the things that Debbie and, I'm sorry, I don't know the other woman's name that was mentioned earlier. And that the board supports to have those in the community. And even more so, because I do have children in the community, the ability to take what my children learn at Northridge on Burr and reinforce it, the respect and integrity and compassion that they gain from seeing those events, and this weekend the Special Olympics and all the other great things that the district has to offer, and that's why I choose to live here and why I pay the taxes that I do. And I know that my friends that live in other districts may not have the same level of services and programs available to them, and that's a choice they make. But I'm very happy for the choice that I've made as a resident of the district for 11 years. So thank you.
Don, I have a question. Gene, on this vote, with the board members, the number of board members, what if only 200 people show up? How many votes do we need? And I don't know if I'm for this or against it.
101. Simple majority.
Okay.
And I'll go down and as opposed to the gun vote in Congress, they're only needed 41 out of 100.
Catherine Curtin, member of the community, PTA, and a lot of things. A lot of hats. I just had a question with the proposition, so that you were going to put out all the information. If the proposition passes, at what point does someone have to submit their petition to be able to run? And how many people can run? Is there a maximum? Can we all run? When will we find out? All that. Where do we go?
Okay, so nominating petitions have to be filed 30 days in advance of the vote. So should the proposition pass, the board anticipates setting a vote date, perhaps the evening of May 21st, and then everything will flow from that in terms of deadlines and filing et cetera. There's a number of things that we have to do on our end, which I won't bore you with, in terms of publication, notices in the newspaper, et cetera. But basically, that's the timeline. The board has not yet decided on the date of the vote.
So, Gene, I'm sorry, I missed that.
If a vote is required by the will of the voters.
So when you vote, if it passes, then you vote on the members. And only 200 people show up to vote for the board members. You can have that vote. The vote would be in July.
Yes.
Why am I confused here?
All you need is one person to show up. If one person shows up, then you win.
Yes, it's simple majority. Simple majority, doesn't matter how many, whatever that is.
50 plus
In May, when
50%
plus vote,
Oh, you need 3?
6,000 people show up to vote, and 6,000 vote on the budget, but only 1,000 choose to vote on Proposition 2. They only need a simple majority, 501, for that to pass. And if that occurs, at that evening, the board most likely will set a date for that special election, which by law must be held between 30 to 60 days after that vote. And then to answer Catherine's question, anybody at that point in the community can take out a petition and run for those 2 seats, just like anybody can do that with any regular election that we have. There's no limit, there's no requirement other than, you know, that you be a community member, that you obtain petition legally conforming with the requirements, you know, valid signatures and all of that. That would be based on, that'll be based on the.
90.
Again, it says that the people that showed up at the last, this coming election, we don't know that number.
2% of the people would vote on May 21st.
Vote on May 21.
And Mrs. Goulder, what you said is correct, just to clarify, I mean, you have to be over 18, I think you have to be not a convicted felon, there's a few other qualifications. I'm just saying, it's not, there are a few other qualifications which you must have to be a candidate. I'm not being facetious, I'm just saying.
Somebody, say that fast, and somebody ran through that position, they got elected. And then at one point in time realized, you know what, I can't keep this responsibility and step down. Is there then another window?
No. If a trustee resigns or becomes disqualified during the course of their term, the Board of Education, and whether it's this vote or happens right now, anytime, regardless of the circumstances, the Board of Education basically has 3 options. One is to call a special election to fill that seat. Second is to appoint someone to that seat until the next general election, which will be May of 2014, or to keep the seat open until the next general election. Those are basically the 3 choices open to the board anytime there's a resignation, disqualification, death, etc. of an incumbent trustee.
Gene, if I can add one other thing on qualifications, you must live in the district for 1 year.
Should we not do 2, 2, and 1? Would we do 2, 2, and 3?
We haven't analyzed that. You know, I did have a preliminary, I think Peter had a preliminary email, and we'll have this prepared by May 21st, should, again, the proposition pass. But basically what the commissioner has said is, as with our current terms, they should be staggered, so that you don't have 5 trustees running 1 year and 1 the next, you know. So we're gonna have to look at that in terms of our present rotation, if you will. But that is within the discretion of the Board of Education, and we will do that in conformance with the commissioner's opinion. So probably what's likely to happen is one of the 2 slots will be for 2 years. That's the likely result. And people can then, we don't vote at large, we vote for individual offices in Commack, so prospective candidates can then choose which office they wish to run for.
If you lose this time around, can you run again in 2 months?
Well, should the proposition increasing the size of the board be passed, yes, you would not be disqualified from anyone. Again, the only qualification to be over 18, not a felon, citizen, etc.
Let me ask this. If someone gets another petition with 200 signatures to make it 9 board members, when would that vote have to take place? Or 11 board members, or 13? You only
Could only be 9
signatures.
I'd have to look into that a little more carefully. The law of these